Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 2nd of August. Can you believe it? Almost the year is over. We are in August. By next month, we will be in fall. We will be done with our summer. So let me get started. Welcome to Facebook Live. And I'm welcoming the panel today. We have April, who is, I'm not going to go into her resume. She is a psychic, a medium, channel, quite a few modalities of healing. Good evening, April. Thank you for joining. Then we have Rob, who is a book author. Good evening, Rob. He has been with us on a regular basis recently. We have Michelle here, who is part of a core group of meditators. Good evening, Michelle. And then we have Hugh, who is part of our team, recently joined the panel. He sometimes pops in on the group meditation, sometimes not. Good evening, Hugh. And then we have Hannah, who's joined us today. Hannah is Rob's daughter. So welcome, Hannah. Thank you for joining. So I'm going to ask you all this question. It's perfect, April, that you are here, because this is what the question is. I'm new to this group and have not found this to be questioned before. When our body dies, would our ego die as well? Do our egos carry on with our life force after our bodies die? If so, does the behavior of our ego change after our body dies? This ego thing really has me perplexed. And I'll try to type that in too. Thank you. Let me go tag everyone on the Facebook. Thank you.
I think you wanted me to go first, Puno? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the ego is a big topic. And it has, many different aspects to it. I can tell you, as being a psychic medium, when people come from the other side, they normally come with pretty much the same personality or ego. Well, it's their personality that comes through. Some of it's a little, I guess you could say a little bit of it is ego. So if I have somebody who really thought they were like the best thing, when they come through, they convey that. So that could be construed as ego. My understanding is that the ego, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this because it can get confusing. Because when I do talk to people, you can see some ego in a sense. Most of the time, though, ego, as far as how we talk about it, like ego being part of the shadow, ego being the part of us that we need to shed, we need to try to evolve past, such as like identity roles are part of ego, needing to be the best, that's part of ego. I need to have the best job, those kinds of things, those are not on the other side. People don't carry those with them. Those do get dropped. I have many people that come from the other side and want me to tell people how much they love them, how much they mean to them, and that if there is any type of events or situations or things that happen during that lifetime, they will say they're sorry. They will say that. So I don't really find the ego part so much that's really stays with the person. The personality stays, characteristics stay. We do evolve on the other side. We do grow, we do learn. But it not everybody is like 100% enlightened either on the other side. So it's kind of tricky. It's really kind of tricky to talk about it. It's easier for me to feel it and sense it than it is to talk about it. I do find though that people that I talk to on the other side, they are always in a peaceful space. They're always in like a loving space. And offering help and guidance, unconditional love. But I do get this sense that they also are still learning and evolving and growing. So, did you post a question, Poonam, so I can look back at it and see? What I'm missing here. The ego is an entity that develops around age 2. And I find that with pretty much everybody I've ever worked with. Some people it's a little bit, doesn't come online there as early as 2, but for most people it does. It's an entity that tells you who you are as a person. It starts speaking to you. It's where you start to create your own identity separate from the parent. Usually up until that point, the child thinks they are an extension of the parent. They don't really see the separation between them and the parent. Around that age 2, that's when that happens. That's the ego. The ego tells you who you are, and it also tells you, like, so I remember, like, in grade school, elementary school, there's all that comparison. That's the ego. Playing tug of war with the other kids. Did I pull as hard as I could? Did I did I run the fastest? All that's ego. That comparison is all ego. Not found this question to be before. So the ego, for the most part, does die. There are some people that I have found that the ego still comes through. Your personality is what I find doesn't die. Okay. You get a whole new body and you can have some of the same characteristics when you come back. But you get a new body and you usually get new characteristics, new personalities. But I have done past life regressions on people, and each lifetime there is a theme. So each lifetime there will, like, if I had somebody who liked food, cooking food, that will pop up in several lifetimes. Or if they liked music, that will pop up in several lifetimes. So there are some of the characteristics and skills and personality traits that do carry forward. But for the most part, you get a completely different life. Why do you get a completely different life? Because that is the goal. The goal is for Source to express and experience itself in the many, numerous different forms. And it can't do that if you come back and have the exact same life time after time after time. Okay, so does the behavior. Okay, so yeah.
So Michelle asked a follow-up question.
Yeah.
She said, so after one dies, I'm just reading it for people online, whoever's watching us, because they won't be seeing the chat. So the follow-up question is, so after one dies and the personality comes through from the other side, when does that soul reincarnate? Thank
Well,
you.
we don't know. We don't know when that soul reincarnates. So you come from, the way to kind of break it down is like spirit breaks down into soul and then breaks down, it comes into the body. And there's no timing as far as when that soul reincarnates. Because there's been people that it's an instant reincarnation, and then there's some people that, well, to us, it would be like 1,000 years in between. So there's no time frame, X amount of time frame as far as when. But your soul does reincarnate. Okay, the soul that is in you, that fraction that's in you, that fraction will continue to reincarnate. But as far as when, there's no way to really, there's no set date, time frame. And some may choose to not. It's really, though, about your frequency. So there's a theory out there that the reason you keep coming back to Earth is because your frequency is tied to the frequency of Earth. And the way out of that is to raise your frequency, your vibration, which is healing, which is love, which is unconditional love. So does that all make sense?
Yeah, I do. I still have a question though. So you access the personality, they come through. Could that soul simultaneously reincarnate and you can still access that person?
Yeah. See, you asked that question. I was that is very difficult for people to accept. So I was kindly skipping by that.
Nope.
So, so I don't know if you remember, but we have answered this question before. And when this first came to me, it was after my brother's suicide. And I got a hold of a book, The Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And I read that book, and in there, he says that you can be on the other side as Michelle, and then, but yet you could reincarnate at the same time. And I was like, how in the world, how could that ever be possible? And it was very upsetting and disturbing to me, because I'm like, well, where's my brother then? What do you mean? Where's my brother? What? He can't come back as somebody else at the same time.
Hmm.
And really what it is that it's your spirit, and then it fractions into soul. So technically you could reincarnate while still part of you is over there. And then also we have to remember that only a fraction of us is in this body at any point in time. It's not the whole of us. It's not all of our soul, all of our spirit is not in this body. So there is always a part of you that's already on the other side. It's like having one foot in. Only part of your soul is in this body. The rest of you is not in this body. So there could be a part of me that's here and then a part of me that is reincarnating somewhere else.
So that's like different planes.
Yeah, different dimensions, different planes,
Right. Okay.
different realities. Yeah, it gets very complicated and confusing, and for some it gets very upsetting. So that's why I was trying to kind of scoot by that one. But if you just look at it like literally a fraction of what is in your body right now is the totality of your spirit. And that's the same thing as like, and then there you have all the possibilities. Then you bring in all the possibilities of, there's a part of me that, I don't know, some famous singer or something, or there's another part of me that's if I ever wanted to be a chef, oh, there's that timeline. Now I'm a chef over here, and right. So it just gets really complicated. This is a good question for Kelly and Kelly, especially Kelly. He would have fun with this.
You're incredibly amazing. Thank you so much, April. So grateful for the input. So did you want to describe, like, once again, I guess everybody understands, whoever's watched the Facebook Live, you want to go through quickly about the how do you get the soul contract and then get born here, so that people understand why are you born with a certain degree of karmic content already as a baby. You're born with it. Thank you.
Oh, why are you born with karma? Why are you born with? Yeah. Well, like in this question, when, the body dies and you go to the other side, like I said, I haven't found a whole lot of ego necessarily over there. There is ego over there, but it's more personality and characteristic. But when you die, you have a life review. It is not a judgment, but it is a life review where you look at, how did I do in this lifetime? It sounds like judgment, but you're really seeing, okay, what did I What was I able to evolve through? What was I able to grow? What was I able to overcome? What did I learn? And if there's an area where you feel like it's basically like you have to get to a certain dimension, a certain frequency, a certain level of love, and you're on this path of getting there, and you look at, okay, where am I on that path? And if there's something that I need to learn again, then you will come back and you will try again. There's different aspects of that. You know, do I need to learn self-love? Do I need to learn patience? Do I need to learn gratitude? All those things. You will come back with that. If you didn't learn it in another lifetime, then you will be bringing that forward. There's also events that can be carried forward, because this is your soul. Your soul is gathering information, gathering data, and the soul doesn't lose that data that it's gathered just because the body died. The physical body died, but the soul did not die. The physical body is gathering data through all its cells and all its the whole time you're alive. All that information is transferred into the soul. So it can then it's recorded and it knows that and it remembers that. I mean, what would be the purpose if we died and then just forgot everything? That is the whole purpose of the cells of the body. It's recording everything at all times. That's why we're mostly water. That's what water does. Stores energy. There's a reason that we're recording everything. There's a reason, and all of that goes into the body and goes into the cells, and it gets input into the soul is recording it. When you get to the other side, you can look at all that information and you can say, okay, how did I do on this journey? What did I learn this time? If there's something we didn't learn, then you will bring that forward in the next lifetime. There's also events that the soul will bring forward from the next time. If you had tragedies in your other lifetime, that is recorded. It doesn't skip things or just say, well, I only want all the rainbows. No, it doesn't do that. That's why we have past life regression, and we have many people who have, ailments or issues, and they come up in the past life regression. Like, why do I always have a problem with my arm or my foot? Well, you were stabbed in the other lifetime in your foot. That is a real thing that is stored in your cells in that body. Then it gets transferred to your soul. So that would be why you would be bringing things forward. But it's all to learn and to grow and to evolve. If you become aware this time of those things, so you're aware, like, I have this foot issue that just makes no sense, and you are on this path, you're awakened, and you can go into that foot and see, like, what is the issue here? It could be something from this current lifetime, but if it's a long-term issue you can't solve, usually it's from another lifetime. You go into it, you heal it. You are therefore healing not only the physical body, but the soul. You are now done with that. So when you come back for the next lifetime, you don't have a foot issue. And I'm just using some random examples. That's how it works. Is that good? Does that make sense?
Beautiful. Thank you so much, April. That was incredible. Yeah, and I don't think there is an ego that we take back, because it has to be an imprint at the level of energy. What we take back is our, Sadhguru says our karmic content is imprinted at the energy level, right? It's like memory written at the energy level. That karmic imprint. So what they say is there's a warehouse of this karmic imprint. Like Carolyn Mays, in her terminology, she says there's a warehouse of these archetypes, right? These energy memories of energy. And so a person, when they're born with only a certain, he calls it prarabdha karma and sanchit karma. So they're born with just a portion of the warehouse. They cannot, our body cannot hold that information. Like if you were to say we want the download of the whole warehouse of information, our body cannot hold that much energy. So we just are born with a certain portion of it, and that's what we are experiencing. And that's what we are going to die, do the final review and go, okay, I learned these, I had 6 lessons, I've learned 3 of them, and I need to learn the other 3. So I'm going to be born again. One of the things that April said about past lives, we have to realize that past life is not a past life. Past life is happening now, because everything is happening now. Everything is happening in parallel, in a parallel universe somewhere. And that's how we tap into our past life and do the past life regression and tap into our past life. So it's very, another complex, very complex topic to understand that our past lives are actually happening in this moment, because there's no past and future. It's just the timeless now. There's just timelessness. Right? So everything is happening at the same time. And this is probably another Kelly question, but it's something to know that everything is happening at the same time. It's just that we don't know how to get into that depth of where we can tap into all the lifetimes that we are connected to. We are not at those frequencies where we can tap into all the dimensions that and parallel universes that exist where our past lives exist. But that's how you bring the change too, right? Like if I want to change something about get to my future, like Dr. Joe says, right? Get to my future self. I need to change something in the present, but that present also changes my past. The past personality has to change in this present moment when I make that choice and become the new person, new self, then the past self has to change as well. With that, I'll go to Rob. Rob, did you want to say something about this topic? I know we talked a lot. Thank you.
Great topic. Grateful to have my daughter here. That's awesome. Hello, Hannah. Hello to the rest of you and everybody. The ego is the false self. It's the idea that we are somebody that we're not. We're living this lie. And so that is sort of a like a fingerprint. When April was speaking, it gave me time. Thank goodness April went first, so that I could collect my thoughts. I think the ego is kind of like a fingerprint. And when we show up in our earth suit, we develop this false self, and it's developed around tons of patterns. It can be ingrained in our psyche, and it's also developed through the patterns, the physical patterns that that were associated with the school environment and so forth. And then we have to break that false self down. And so I think that goes away when we die. I think the level of the Bhagavad Gita talks about the level of consciousness that we are, that state of consciousness we're in when we die is the state of consciousness we would be when we are reincarnated and come back into another earth suit. And actually, Hannah and I had a conversation about this to give one example. Actually, Eckhart Tolle's example. I think he said somebody who was had an eating disorder and they were very skinny. No, it was an overweight person. And he said, maybe this person won't learn their lesson and they'll come back in their life as the opposite, as anorexic. It's just the idea that we're filling this void in us, and it's the wrong void. That's a whole side topic. It just occurred to me when I was saying that. But yeah, so I think the ego dies. I think it's very particular, like a fingerprint, but we do come back on this level of consciousness. And I think sometimes the level of consciousness and ego are kind of thought to be similar, and I think there's differences there. The Bhagavad Gita, if I remember, has 3 different levels of consciousness, and I'll butcher the names to those, so I'm not going to try to spout those off. That's my take on that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rob. I agree. I feel the ego dies the moment because the ego is associated with the personality that we are in this lifetime, right? When the intellect and the ego is all identification with this mind of this lifetime. So the moment this lifetime, when the brain is gone, the intellect is gone, the ego of this lifetime is gone, what is left is our karmic. What is left is at the energy imprint, memory imprinted on our energy body, which is that karmic content. And that will go on for lifetimes until we exhaust it completely. So people have to, I mean, it's a very woo-woo kind of understanding, but if somebody understood how karma perpetuates or archetypes, like in Carolyn Mace's language, archetypes perpetuate, that's how they perpetuate from one lifetime to another. But the lesson, what April said is correct, is unconditional love. Is until we can get to unconditional love. It's like Sri Lakshmi and I were having a conversation. That it's called the Turiya state, the fourth level of consciousness. And can we stay in the Turiya state like all constantly throughout the day, which we don't, right? We get into the different vibrational states. So thank you for that, Rob. Grateful, incredible. Let me, Michelle, did you want to say something about this topic? Thank you.
Yeah, I honestly, Poonam, it's not my wheelhouse, but I instinctually agree that the ego would die, just like you said, and then you just carry the karma from the lifetimes over. That's just what intuitively feels right, but not that I've studied anything or like April or Kelly's, that have all this knowledge of all these different areas, but very fascinating. I'm glad you brought up the question, or the group member did. So grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for it too. Hannah, did you want to say something about this topic? Welcome.
I honestly don't know how much I have to add. I absolutely agree with what everybody said, and I definitely identify with it. When April was talking about how your spirit can kind of be in 2 places at once, it made me think of my grandmother. Last year, she had passed away, and she was in hospice. She had days to live, and I can pick up on energies pretty well. And I totally noticed when I first went in to see her in the hospital, it was like half of her was gone. And I had noticed it, and I had mentioned it to my mom, because I was like, she's there and I can see her, but energetically, like I didn't feel all of her. So I definitely identify with what April said.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Good to have you here. Good to have a young person here, right?
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. We're grateful for it. Hugh, did you want to say something, Hugh?
Yeah, I'm young. I'm young too.
Yes, 21 forever.
Hey, look, I'm gonna tell you something about the ego. I have a hard enough time understanding it and working with it on this side. So when it goes to the other side, that's above my pay grade. You know what I mean? So I really don't have anything to add there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Let me go to Francesca. Francesca, did you want to say something about this? Thank you. I think we cannot hear you, Francesca. Your microphone may not be working. You may have to change the microphone that the Zoom call is using to system. No, we cannot hear you. Okay, Francesca says she's gonna listen today, that she agrees with Rob and April. If you figure it out, just let me know in the chat, Francesca, okay? Thank you. Kelly, did you want to say something about this? Welcome.
Hi. This is a very deep question. There's a there's a lot of layers to this one. I was like, okay, I'm glad all these other people are speaking first. I'm like, where do I start? I wish I could, sorry that I was late, because I wish I would have been here to hear everything April said, because I know she has some really good insights, as does everyone else. I'm gonna start with the bottom part of the paragraph of the question, that the ego has this person really perplexed, because the ego can be very perplexing in itself, because I feel our ego is part of our personality, like the false personality that we adopt when we come through here. And when we leave here, because of my experience with communicating with, beings from the other side, is that after you pass on those ego things, people will understand things in the after, because their ego was in the way while they were here, if that makes any sense. So people who might have been kind of cruel while they were living, or they were very unhappy, are often very different when we communicate with them after, because they have a completely different perspective and they see things that they didn't while they were here. And that's because of their ego. So I feel our ego is really that part of our false personality, and it likes to attach to a lot of the things that we believe here, which is why it's so important to actually question what we believe and why we believe it. Because that's how you transmute energy. That's how you transmute the patterns that you have. People were talking about karma, they were talking about incarnation. There's a lot of things written about it. There's a lot of people's opinions or perspectives on it. And there are aspects of some of those two things that are part of the illusion that we live in here, which can also be upsetting to people when we talk about that, because we have these beliefs about that in particular. But our ego is the one that really loves to grab onto those stories that we have and run with them here while we're alive. So that's why it's important to question everything that you believe, because anything. So, and you can keep questioning yourself all the time. So I do not feel that our egos go with us after. I think Rob had a good analogy. I think that was you with the thumbprint, kind of thing, or fingerprints, that it's part of us here. And when you incarnate into another body, you might have a different ego personality, depending on, whatever that timeline is. And yeah, and there is the whole thing with parallel lives, which is very difficult, for people to understand, that it's all happening at the same time, because our brain likes everything linear. We like to think it's all in one straight line. And anybody that does healing work knows that that's not how healing works. It's all over the place. So I guess my short answer, like for real, because I do have short answers, shorter than Kelly. Hopefully he'll be home soon. Does our ego die? I don't know if it dies. I mean, everything's energy. So I'm not really sure I don't know if that's just a word, that was used, but I don't feel like we take it with us. It's not like a luggage to carry on that we that we take when we go. But yeah, there's the life review, like April was saying, there's a lot of different things. So I feel like with ego, it's really important to just understand what your ego is doing right now, because like Poonam was saying, that affects the past and the present. If you can figure that out, you can, in the present, you change your future and you change the past too, or, however you want to think about it. Can someone access their parallel life? Does it intermingle or influence the life here? That's a good question. That is a very good question. I know from accessing, because I remember thousands, not all at once, but I will have, depending on what I'm working through, I will have those lives like come through. And I always just look at it as information. So for me, it's always relevant to whatever I'm working on in the present. If there's something that I'm trying to let go of that's a pattern, it shows me where I had power then, because a lot of times we'll look at past lives or parallel lives, however you want to call it, and we focus on the trauma, and we just like we kind of focus on the trauma even right now, but the trauma is to be transmuted. So even if there was a trauma in a past life, I'm using that word for, lack of a better one, that even if it was traumatic, like let's say, I forget, April, what you had said as an example, but you got shot or you got stabbed or something, and you have a back pain in this lifetime, and you realize that you're angry, okay, you're dealing with anger right now. Often if I have that other life memory come up, it'll be like, oh yeah, you got hurt here too. And what did you do? Did you get, what did you do then? Do you remember what you did then? Where was your power then? Did you give it away and just think that somebody should fix it, or did you actually take steps to do it? Because a lot of times it's always about regaining our personal power in right now. Wherever we've given it away and we're giving our energy away, we're bringing it back, and we're bringing it back in here. And I always look at, I think, April, at the beginning, were you saying something about layers, right? Like our higher selves, right? Like we have different dimensions that pieces of ourself reside in, correct?
Yeah, so we have, the spirit, which is
Yeah.
the closest to source, and then the spirit actually fragments into the body. There's only a portion of you in the body, right? But
Yeah.
the intermingling of the parallel lives, it would intermingle, because if there's something there, right, that we haven't worked out, that would be how it's intermingling. So I mean, if I was in a car crash in another life, and for some, which I have that, like right now in this lifetime, I don't like boats. I've never liked them, don't know why. I'm pretty sure that I had some sort of boating issue in another lifetime. That's intermingling with this life, right? I mean, Kelly, you and I have talked numerous times
Yeah.
about events of other lives. So it does intermingle and it does influence your life here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but as far as the layers, I always thought, like, this is my soul, it's in my body, my whole soul. And then when my brother died, and I wanted to find out more about that, and they were like, well, not really, only part of him comes in. I'm like, whoa, where's my brother? What do you mean? I was so upset. I wanted the whole soul to be in the body. That's, to me, like, I wanted all of my brother to be in one spot. But it's just because I didn't understand that your whole soul doesn't come in here, can't fit in this little body.
Yeah. I always think of them kind of like nesting dolls. There's
Yeah.
like there's a little portion of us here, and then there's another one and another, until you get like really out and there's like, your higher self and the part of you that's really close to source, which can be very intimidating, or it's like hard to wrap our mind around that. So I can understand what you're saying about being upset, but I really like what you said just now about the intermingling and the influence of the life here. That was a really good way to put it. I'm done for now. If I think of anything, I'll put it in the chat.
I'm just checking, like, between all the chats, I've lost what Michelle said. So can someone access their parallel life? Does it intermingle or influence the life here? Thank you, Kelly. Incredibly amazing. Thank you. Grateful for your input. As far as intermingling, I think we are influencing, if we are in this lifetime, we are influencing all of our other lives in this present moment. So that's how they are intertwined and intermingled, kind of, because the influences, and that's how we affect it. The more, and that's why all of Dr. Joe's teachings are more about getting into that theta state. The more we are in that generous present moment, as he says, then we begin to make the shifts. And we won't even connect to, the more we are going inwards, the more we connect psychically with all our past lives as well. So that's how we connect. And the more we are mental, so we're saying all this very mentally, but the actual experience is very energetic experience, right, Kelly and April? It's very at the level of energy, experiencing that state where you can actually connect with your past life. Actually, Dr. Norm Shady gave us a meditation, Michelle, that's a past life regression meditation that you can go in and see if you can get into your past life. Because that's where the some of the healing resides. In Sacred Contracts, Carolyn Mays talks about this woman. So Carolyn Mays is a medical intuitive, right? So she's looking like intuitively, she doesn't know, she hasn't seen the person. She has a name and age, that's it. So Dr. Norm Shealy will let her know. I'm talking to Michelle, she's 30 years old, right? So Carolyn Mays will then intuitively go see what is wrong with this person, not knowing any of that person's medical history. So she's like at the level of energy, she's trying to figure out what is wrong with this person. So this one person, when she was focusing on her, she says, she called Dr. Norm Shealy and she said, what is that person wearing? Is she wearing a pirate suit? And Dr. Norm Shealy said, no, she's like he's in Missouri, I think, Missouri or Minnesota, Missouri, I think, Springfield, Missouri. So she's like a Midwest housewife wearing jeans and a blouse. She's not wearing a pirate costume. And so Carolyn Mays goes, this has to be a past life. So this woman had something going on with her neck. Like she was I don't know what the disease was. And then Carolyn Mays says exactly what April said, that she got cut off. Like, well, her neck got cut off as a pirate, right? She was a pirate in this thing. But she said, how does that apply in this lifetime? And this is the intermingling, Michelle. How does this apply in this lifetime? Is that she's cutting herself off from her deeper self. Like at throat, right? No communication with her heart. So that's the intermingling, that she's still cutting off, like her neck got cut off physically in one lifetime, but that metaphorically here, she is cutting herself off from her true self. Like that fun-loving pirate, you know, what do pirates do? Fun love. She's cutting herself off from the true self. So that's how the intermingling happens. So that's like the perfect example of how did that past life intermingle with this life, that she could experience that. I hope that explains it.
So do you think intuition and instinct comes from that place, from other lives or parallel lives or past lives, like knowledge or wisdom that you've gained?
Potentially, because all the lifetimes, all the lifetimes are happening now. So there, your soul, like April was saying, right? There's a portion of your soul in this lifetime, There's a portion of your soul in the future life. There's a portion of your soul in your past lives. Let's imagine that your strands of wire, right? Like maybe that's more understandable. One strand is this lifetime, another strand is a future life, or maybe 2 or 3 future lives, 3 or 4 past lives, and you're communicating constantly. It's just energy, right? Energy is constantly communicating with all the dimensions in all the lifetimes. And that's why the spiritual lesson ever, always, if it's a true teacher, whether it's Eckhart, whether it's Byron Katie, whether it is Carolyn Mays, Dr. Norm Shitty, whether it is Dr. Joe Dispenza, it's all about going deeper within, deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper within, so that we can have access intuitively to these psychic abilities, so that we intuitively know what's going on right now with this. How do I heal this so that I get to that unconditional love? Because some of it is because of my past life. Some of it my soul chose as a lesson for this lifetime. Let me figure all that out. Until we go deeper, we are not going to figure it out. Right? Because there's this thing called the saboteur archetype. I love Carolyn Mace's statement that all of us have the victim, the wounded child, the child archetype. Like there's one more point I want to make. The child archetype, the victim archetype, the saboteur, and the prostitute. And the saboteur always will sabotage. We are going fine in our life, and the saboteur will come sabotage. We're going well with our relationship, and the saboteur will come and destroy something, right? We are doing well with something, and the saboteur will come destroy it. So that always exists. So we have to always, that's why the power of intuition helps. The other thing that I don't know which one of her, whether it is in Sacred Contracts or whether she talked about it during the course, she said, is it in the Bible that there's a river called lake or river called forgetfulness? Who is very well versed? Okay, so she says that every soul that it incarnates, whether it was Jesus, whether it was Buddha, whether it was, no matter, once you take birth on this earth, you go through the river of forgetfulness or lake of forgetfulness. So that means you forget all what you had gained, right, from your past life or past, and you take birth here. That's why Jesus had to go through the mystery schools of Egypt. Jesus had to go to India, learn all his, like they had to relearn. Buddha had to go through all his lessons, right? Like he had to go through gurus. Buddha had his own gurus. Buddha didn't get enlightenment just by sitting under the Bodhi tree. That did not happen. He went through his own rituals of gurus and his own this thing, right? And then he finally said, oh, all this doesn't work. I'm going to sit under this tree and like get salvation this way, right? So each one had their own teachings. That's how they learn how to be what they are, right? It just so happened that Jesus lived out what his soul contract was, which is to be that epitome of exemplary human being, right? To show us that you can go through all this torture, all this suffering, be on the cross, and you can still say, I forgive them for they know not what they do. Can we get to that unconditional love of forgive them for they know not what they do? With that, I'll go to Francesca. I think she got audio back. Go ahead, Francesca. Welcome back, Francesca. Good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me when I do this? Oh, good. You sent me a little fix there and I tried it and I guess that worked. So I'm just gonna mute, forget that my phone is on. I'm not echoing, am I?
No. not to us. Are you echoing to yourself?
No, no.
Okay, perfect.
That's
Thank you.
good. Okay, awesome. I wasn't planning to share today, and then when I saw the topic and I giggled because I'm like, of course, death is the topic on the day that I decided to come back, and join after such a long time. As you guys know, I've been going through death after death. Literally, in all of its forms. And what everybody shares is very, very profound, and I agree with all of it. For myself, from my own experience, does the ego die? I don't even want to use the word death for the ego at this point, because from what I experience is, awareness, just this state of pure awareness. So I didn't have, which is why when I share, I like to say, the ego has a lower form of its expression and a higher form of its expression, right? Because it is the tool that actually takes us through this journey as we evolve, right? It's the tool that we use whilst we're in this physical body. When we're no longer in the physical body, personally, I still don't feel that it dies. I feel like it's in its highest form of its expression or its experience, which feels, a lot like meditative bliss, without the labeling, without anything. It's just, we're just there and we're in this state of awareness. And it's like, I don't even know how to put it into words. I wasn't even prepared to put it into words as yet, because it's something, I'm going to be adding to my book, and I still have to, channel what those words are going to be. So then I had another death experience, and this it was, the most torturous experience I've had in years. And it was the death of what I call the death of my mental and emotional everything, literally. Again, I was just laying on the bed with nothing, just staring and watching. It's almost like watching my entire life pass by before me, everything. But because I was so weak, I had no energy to think or to feel, and I was so exhausted. The weakness came mostly from exhaustion. So I was so exhausted, and I'd go on Facebook, for example, I'd read a spiritual quote and I'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever, because after a certain point, everything seems to make sense. And it almost felt like I got to choose, whether I was going to let go of my physical body, or to stay here, right? And of course, I choose to stay here because my daughter is only 12 years old. And I feel like I have unfinished work to do. So in relation to, cause and effect, which is karma, my understanding is, yes, whatever work we didn't finish here in this lifetime, we will reincarnate. And it's almost like we come back and I don't want to say start over, because the memories are there, it's accessible to us. If we were to, if we remember when we came back that we should, start a daily practice of meditation, and this will equip us with the ability to access those dimensions, for us to see, so that when we're in our form of suffering, like in Buddhism, it's about developing the right mind, right? And when you've developed the right mind, you have the ability to see. Right? You have the ability to see through truth at a depth that we wouldn't otherwise see, because we're programmed at a certain, we've programmed ourselves, and we are programmed, at this, what I call lower level of mind. And that's where we've become used to operating from, right? So I think everything that everybody said, like a little bit, everything, it's all correct. It's all right in relation to whether the ego dies or not. I do know it's not there. That much I can say. When we've, experienced that physical death, it's not there. It's just, we're just this consciousness, right? This pure, beautiful state of awareness. And like Puna mentioned, in relation to the Christ, his state of consciousness and all the other divine beings, the Buddhas, everybody, their state of consciousness is accessible to us because they have evolved in this three-dimensional lifetime, right? They kept choosing, they had their practices, that took them to the level where they were at, where they were able to endure those suffering, like the Christ of the physical body. Did it hurt? Of course it did, we've seen examples of what happened, right? Horrific examples. But it shows us, he recognized the fact that here in the lower level, right, of mind, he recognized the ignorance, is what I call it, the ignorance of our ego mind, right? In its lower form, it is ignorant. It's not aware of the truth. And as a result of that, yes, Father, forgive them because they know not what they've done. They know not what they do, right? Because, even for myself, I've become triggered. And then, when that trigger, and I'm aware that I'm triggered, and then when that trigger passes through, I'm like, because again, that awareness, it's like, I know that I'm aware that this person is, where they're at in their journey. They're operating from where they're at in their journey, and it's not at the same level of awareness. And so as a result of that, they think what they're doing is the right thing. They think that's what they're supposed to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what they're supposed to do. They just can't see beyond that veil as yet, right? So yeah, that's really my 2 cents. I wasn't really planning to share today. So again, I never even thought of putting this into words as yet, because I'm still moving through some of my debts. I feel, maybe I am clinging to the debt now because I don't want to like, whoa, and because I'm trying to stay grounded and so forth. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, just from what I've experienced so far. So yeah, everybody is right.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Francesca. Grateful for your input. Amazing. So Kelly said people often mix up intuition and ego stories until they have achieved a measure of stillness in the mind. The ego becomes quieter and your intuition louder, and and feel the difference. So Kelly just came in. I guess Kelly needs a question. Let me post it. Kelly, if you want to respond to this, before you respond to the actual question, Summer said, can your soul come back on another planet? So if anyone, Kelly, if you want to respond to that. And the actual question is that I'm new to the group and have not found this to be questioned before. When our body dies, would our ego die as well? Do our egos carry on with our life force after our bodies die? If so, does the behavior of our ego change after our body dies? Thank you, Kelly. Good to see you.
Good to see everybody. So there's a few layers to unpack to this.
April and I were waiting for you.
And Rob.
So when you die, the ego dies, but the programming energy does not. So this is why we reincarnate. We have lessons that we are supposed to learn to evolve, to deepen and anchor more divine light within us. So the process of ego evolution and spiritual evolution are the same. When we die, our lessons carry on with us. So, okay. When we reincarnate, we will often give ourselves, good way to look at it is supplementary exercises or side quests to basically go and find more information and have more specific experiences that will allow us to choose either light or darkness, fear or love. It's basically what it all boils down to. When we reincarnate to evolve further, to learn more, to deepen our connection to ourselves and to the divine. When we die, yes, our ego dies because the limited framework that our mind was stuck in changes. It doesn't disappear entirely because we can carry on personalities from one embodiment to another with some of the same lessons if we haven't actually figured out the lessons, if we haven't been strong enough and disciplined enough to develop and grow beyond those lessons. What else? I
Can
don't
your
know.
soul come back on another planet?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, there's multiple dimensions, multiple planets. I mean, they're finally figuring out that there are trillions of other galaxies out there, and the universe is way bigger than it is. Yeah, you can absolutely embody on a different planet in a different form or being, embodiment, however that manifests according to the I don't know, get into quantum leap terminology and space-time continuum and quantum mechanics and all that other stuff. Simple answer is yes. So, I mean, I don't know, depending on how deep someone wants me to go into this or how much more.
You can go as deep as you want because you're the last person that needs to speak. Everybody else has spoken already.
Oh,
Uh-oh,
no, no, no.
grand finale here. Okay.
Grand finale.
Came on
Wow,
just in
Another
time.
short answer.
Another short answer.
So
In
the question, Kelly, that Kelly and I were trying to figure out the best way to describe is, do you have your soul and your soul comes into the body, but how come you can reincarnate at the same time? We were trying to figure out the best way to explain that.
as in two embodiments at the same time?
Yeah, how is it that I'm here, but then my other soul that I was in last lifetime is over there and that one can reincarnate? Like, what's the best, easiest way to explain that? So we were looking at spirit fracturing,
I look at it as strands of wire.
strands. She said strands.
Yes, that's not a
Uh,
bad, okay.
So like
I
energy,
said,
because
like,
it's energy, right? Energy
It is
can be like
energy, yeah.
how many, like a little thing of energy can be. So why do we have 7 billion humans or 8 billion humans? Because it's the
because of
same
how-
energy, one consciousness, right? Split into 8 billion, if not how many ever more billion. It's just 8 billion humans,
That's
but
that's
there's
a
like,
very simplistic way of putting it. There are 8 billion people here on the planet because of how much information is on the planet. This planet is unique in the universal divine plan of things. A planet with this much information and a solar system with this much information has never existed before. This is why there are so many different souls on this planet. And it's not necessarily all the same energy, but one soul can split into 144,000 different souls because the soul is eternal. The soul is, you cannot destroy the soul. You cannot get rid of the soul. You cannot change the soul. The nature of soul is divine and eternal. So you can have multiple embodiments happening at the same time, and you can have parallel timelines because things need to be wrapped up and integrated. And you can have part of your soul back in, like, I don't know, 1649 or 1146, still working on things because it's the same connection to the same place of origin. And that information, because it is a part of you, can always be present with you, even though it's a quote unquote past life. Everything is happening at the same time in the same place because everything is multidimensional and fractal all at the same time. Our linear framework for reality is exceptionally limited by the programming to stay in our little 5 senses box. And by that I mean eyesight, seeing, hearing, tasting, touch, smell. When we are really multidimensional beings and we have access to far more of reality when we sleep than when we are quote unquote awake. We're probably more alive when we sleep in other dimensions than we realize, even when we're awake.
Well, she wrote a few good books. I think there's 4 or 5 altogether. If you ever look up Barbara Marciniak, and the first book I believe is called Bringers of the Dawn.
Yep.
And the second one is called The Living Library.
Yep.
And that describes how Earth is a living library. And that's what it was created to be, was this place where other beings from all over could come, share information, and take it back to, wherever they're going, whatever they're doing. And so that when you guys were talking, that's why I thought of it, because when you're talking about
Yep,
how can we be everywhere at once, it's like, well, because if we think of Earth as, yes, I will type it in the chat.
yes.
So where was I going with my thought?
Earth-
That
Earth
if
being
we're
run
if
by
we're a
one.
library, oh, the information, that's how there's so many people,
Yep.
right? Because it's one place where there's a lot of information to be shared with a lot of different beings. That's how you can very simplistically look at it.
There's a
Um,
reason why you said 144 though.
Oh, yeah, that's sort of a cosmic joke. A lot of people get stuck on the dogma of there only being 144,000 special souls.
Right.
That's not true.
It's more of a frequency
There's
thing.
frequencies. There are, if you think of it, you have 12 major centers or chakras that people like to refer to them as, that are supposed to be solidified and actually unified into one energy center that then vibrates across 144,000 layers or dimensions of reality. This is where sound and frequency comes in, which is also, again, how you can have one soul manifest and express itself in so many different timelines all at the same time. You know, like, you know, somewhere there is a version of me that's sitting on a beach in Fiji somewhere. I mean, you know,
Or brooding in a cave.
or rooting in a cave. Done that before. I remember that one. So again, this is basically all a matter that speaks to the program of believing that we were only 3D, that we were only what our five senses tell us, and that we're only 3D. Except everybody on this planet every single day is experiencing dozens and dozens and dozens of dimensions and layers of reality all at the same time. And sometimes those layers of reality are very specific to the emotions that we are feeling at that time. So you can feel 2 or 3 emotions at the same time. You can feel joy, frustration, anger, and ambivalence all at the same time. And those are all completely different spaces energetically and frequency, but you can experience them all at the same time. We all experience emotional spaces and layers one on top of each other all the time. This is the key to demonstrating that we are actually multidimensional beings all at once. And this also goes to what happens when we reincarnate. When we pass the threshold of 3D reality into that space where we are choosing what happens when we reincarnate, we do change. The information and the programming of our ego will not be the same depending on how much transmutation of our karma and how much discipline and spiritual awareness we've achieved. And this isn't, I don't make the rules, but cosmic laws have been they, you know,
Sorry.
cosmic laws are that's what they are. And people sort of like, you know, right now there's a lot of chatter in the new age community about, oh, we're ascending to 5D.
We are.
There is no ascension, there is no descension, it's all integration. We're accumulating experiences and learning about how to integrate and embody our truth and our true self, our divine self, that face that we had before we were born. Call it Buddha nature, call it our Christ self, call it our self-actualized self, whatever you want to call it. We're all here to learn how to do that. And every single time we pass the threshold of stepping out of 3D reality and what people call death, we are recalibrating to wrap up and integrate all of the lessons. And then that changes what our ego and our personality will be when we come back the next time, whether or not it's on this planet, some moon somewhere, some other planet, you know, who knows?
Well, that's why it's so important to do your own individual work,
Yep.
because however you think of ascension, whatever, you know, this whole 5D thing that everyone's talking about, it really comes down to you holding a higher vibration.
Yep.
And how do you do that? Well, you let go of all the things that you're not.
Yep.
You let go of all of your false beliefs. You tame your ego. You quiet your mind. That's why it's so important for every single person to be doing their work.
Yep. Stillness is the key. No matter what path, every single path will always lead you to an inner stillness, or that being aligned with your heart space. What Eckhart Tolle refers to as presence, mindfulness, your Buddha nature, your Christ self. Again, every culture has its own definition or its own concept of that space of being aligned and unified with the greater whole. So when we come back, we have had a moment. Sometimes it's very brief. Sometimes we get a vacation, I guess you call it, convalesce and recover from being on Earth, because it's a very intense mystery school that we're on right now, and learning about ourselves is the main core path for everyone. And some people are here for 2 seconds. Some people are here for, hundreds of years. Some people are here for 80. I don't know. Depends on how clear you are. Depends on what you've chosen. When you come back and you've recalibrated, your personality can be different. And that will also reflect what lessons and what choices you made at a soul level. Because again, the soul is eternal. The soul is that reflection of the divine. But that does get split into many, many different timelines and embodiments. This is why we have soul groups, or people that have done the same work together over and over and over again. This is where you have that magnetism of energy, making sure that souls who have made this contract to work together, to support each other and to grow together and to move forwards together are doing so. And sometimes we will feel those ebbs and flows of other people in our soul group when we meet them. Sometimes they'll be in our life, sometimes not. Sometimes when we meet these people, we'll be confused and think that they're a twin flame or a soulmate or something like that. And again, a soulmate is just someone who is able to work with you at that deep level and be able to support you on your actual soul work, and not be an ego attachment, that understands the process well enough to be conscious enough and mindful enough of their own process and their own methods and their own needs to not become an ego attachment, but to become a soul supporter, a soul cheerleader. I don't know. You could get the pom-poms
Kick
out.
you in the spiritual butt
Yeah.
when you need it.
So I have this vision now of
Yep.
people being stuck with
Yep.
this vision of, I'm back here still running from the saber-toothed tiger because it's still happening in that timeline. I'm imagining people are like, I'm still in that lifetime, still doing that. So
Okay. What is that other than a fear trigger?
yeah, well, it's like, you have these multiple lives going on all at
Yep.
the same time. They are influencing you. When you are able to recognize them, or you're able to go in and see the connection with them,
Yep.
and you're able to heal that space. Now, I do have to tell you, I did a past life regression on a lady once. It was the funnest thing ever, because we went back into those lives she was looking to solve a current day issue, but
Mhm.
all she found was joy. It
Hmm.
was so much joy, and that was just as healing,
Yeah.
because she found so much joy in each one of these lifetimes.
Because it's not always about trauma.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. It was so much fun, but it was so healing because it brought that joy forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like wanting to put a little resolve to that. So if people are like, oh, in my last lifetime, am I still on the boat, or am I still running from the tiger, or am I, still cooking in the kitchen? Like, to put a little resolve to that. I think if it's not truly influencing in this lifetime, then do we say, then it's okay? It's only the ones that are really influencing us? Or the ones that we discover in this lifetime?
Yeah, that's a good way of I
Do not
guess,
worry about it.
yeah,
Not
not,
try, you don't have to try to
No,
go
no,
and dig it
No, because
around
no,
in
you don't have to go. dig it around.
1487.
no,
No,
no, no.
like that's the thing. You don't have to go digging around for these things. If they come up, they come up.
Yep.
And some people are, think of it as a curse that they remember so many. Some people feel blessed. Some people don't want to remember, and that's okay too. You don't have to remember what you're doing, or
No.
like somewhere else. And actually, I love what you said is, am I still running from that saber-toothed tiger? And everything in me wanted to say, no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You did it. You're done.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want, because that's really what everyone's doing right now is wrapping it up.
Yep.
So no, you're done. If you have that come up, it's what did you beat it? Like
What-
maybe you outran it and now you're done. And everything in me just wanted to go, no.
No.
We're not always still in trauma.
Yeah.
You can be finished with that.
What matters most is what you're doing with your awareness now. In this lifetime, even if you have those memories. I mean, I grew up having access to so many of my past life memories. I would, yeah, I learned
Yeah,
that
because
no,
some people, like we were talking earlier, I think it was Poonam who might have mentioned it. Sorry if it was someone else. That when we come here, right, the river of forgetfulness or whatever, right? That you have to forget.
Mhm.
But some people are born remembering.
Yep.
And that's their like soul contract to remember.
Yep.
So some
Yep.
people forget and then they remember. Some people don't remember at all. So you don't have to get hung up on anything.
yeah. I mean, past lives are great points of reference that should be used as information context for your current reality and things that you are working on. And generally, if you spend a little bit of time looking at it this way, it's very easy to find out the connection to something that you're working on. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but that's what I've learned over the years, being able to look at and access freely a great deal in my past lives. And after a while, it's like, when you're teenagers, like, oh, wow, this is cool. I can, watch a movie of all this stuff. And like, I don't, while I'm in class and I won't get bored in class.
All the stories.
Yeah, it's one of the, it's what
Beautiful.
trying, so.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kelly. Incredibly amazing as always. Grateful, eternally grateful for all the input. One of the things that I wanted to, I don't know if Michelle is aware. So one of the points I wanted to clarify is when April was talking about when the spirit leaves the body, all I've heard from everybody that has had, whether it was Anita Murjani or it was Dr. Eben, I took a course with I don't know if you remember Gracie. Gracie and I took a course with Dr. Eben Alexander, who had a near-death experience. And all of them say, and even Carolyn Mace writes in Sacred Contracts, that once the spirit leaves the body, the suffering is of the body. Once the spirit leaves, we are in that infinite love. The choices that these souls are making, like when the soul agrees to take birth, and when they're doing what Kelly was talking about, soul groups, like in Sacred Contracts, she uses the example of Helen Keller and whoever Helen Keller's teacher was, right? I think I did a tip of the day with that too, that they agreed that this soul, so what she says is like the group of souls is there, and then when you start, like she says, you start to say, okay, what archetypes am I going to test with in this lifetime? So the archetype is actually like a template. She said, like, you know how the cookie cutters are, they're empty, but they're cookie, like the same, like I have the child archetype, you have the same template. Kelly has the same template, Hannah has the same template, Rob has the same template, Francesca, but how we fill that template is our experience. So it almost, I feel like 7 billion of us are connected. Just imagine 7 billion of us are connected to a supercomputer that is just the child, like a server. We are uploading information about being a child architect, the wounded child. Like in my case, it's the wounded child. I'm uploading information about the wounded child. What did I do? Did I heal the wounded child? The same thing, victim. So it's easier if we kind of delve into and figure out what are the templates that we were born with, so that we can kind of like heal from them, because the templates were the lessons. And then the soul, what happens is, out of unconditional love, these souls say, okay, Helen Keller's teacher, I think she was blind herself, right? So she had to be born, and she had to experience the trauma of being discriminated for her blindness. So that when Helen was like 7, 8 years old, when she took Helen under her, she could teach her a different way of how to treat blindness for her own growth, right? Helen had to be that impactful person that teaches how to be blind and still like be differently available, differently able, and still impact the world, right? Kelly, you wanted to say something? You raised your hand. You good? Okay. I think it's getting late for people in the East Coast, so this was incredibly amazing. Thank you so much. Infinite gratitude, and good to see Hannah and Francesca. A lot of new people came in. I wish Caesar was here. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for choosing your divinity over your humanity and selflessly giving your efforts today. Many blessings. Much love. Good night.
Everyone.
Hey.
Bye.